proud president of the Direct Marketing Club of New York. We are your hosts for the evening, along with the Data Innovators Group, who every year we do this dinner annually. And this year we are celebrating Mr. Joe Zawadzki, CEO of MediaMath. But before we get to that, I do just want to welcome everyone on behalf of the Direct Marketing Club and also of the Data Innovators Group, our special guests, honorees, former honorees, Mr. Charles Stryker. And I also want to extend a special thank you to my board of directors, my executive board, Tim Kennan, John Fletcher, Ray Schneeberger, and Mr. Arnold. And past president, Ms. Pegg. I also want to extend a very special thank you to our sponsors this evening. Our gold sponsor tonight is VDC, Venture Development Center. Thank you so very much. Silver sponsors are Nextmark, Joe, thank you, Joe Pitch, B12, and DSI, that's services. Thank you very much. So, as you may or may not know, the Direct Marketing Club of New York has been around for about 82 years, is that what it is, or something like that? And one of our parts of our mission statement is really to promote and advance education. And so tonight, we are really excited to have an educational partner in Baruch College. And we have a representative here, Donna Haggerty, who is, hi Donna, the Executive Director of Strategic Partnerships. Professor David Luna was here with us this evening for a brief time. I know some of you got a chance to meet him. And Baruch is actually embarking on a wonderful new, just a new adventure where they are going to be really focusing on MarTech. So it really works right in line with what MediaMath is doing and really evolving the way our industry is. So we're really excited to have Baruch as part of our partnership tonight. Thank you, Donna. So to move this along and we get to the real crux of everything, I'm going to introduce Mr. Charles Stryker right now, who is the chairman and CEO of Venture Development Center, who will be presenting the award to Joe tonight. Dr. Stryker.
Thanks very much, Paulette. It's good to be back here again. Those of you probably know 2 years ago I was lucky enough to get this award, and as part of my acceptance speech, I told you everything I know about the data business, so this introduction will be brief. I tried to think of what would be the most interesting thing I haven't said, so I came up with an idea. I hope you enjoy my 10 minutes of fame as I introduce Joe. As all of you know, we're here to honor Joe for his accomplishments, and Joe, to start, I'd like to say I spoke to some people here, and going forward, this venue is going to be called the National Museum of MediaMath. Well deserved. Well, it actually sounds a lot better. By the way, I'm kidding. Just in preparing some notes as my introduction, this kind of 10 minutes of fame, I was trying to reflect on, how you got here, right? How did we get here to have data and data-driven services and ad services be so interesting that you would be picked as the one unique person deserving the award as the Innovator of the Year? And it's really kind of interesting, and at least interesting to me. And the story starts there's kind of 3 phases of innovation in the data-driven services business. And the thing they have in common is there's periods of time when there's massive amounts of technical innovation. At the same time, there's marketing conditions that are transitioning. And when entrepreneurs have the vision to see that is, there's new technology that allows us to solve problems that we weren't able to solve before efficiently, and those problems are becoming more and more significant. every day. And it takes a special kind of person to see that. To give you an example, the first explosion of technology was in the 1850s. Remarkably enough, in a 20-year period of time, the undersea cable was invented, meaning the ability to send messages between across the English Channel. Remarkably, the file cabinet was invented. I don't know what people did with their papers. The typewriter was invented, carbon paper was invented. There were 20 or 30 of these inventions that took place over a rough, the telephone was invented over this rough 20-year period. And there were entrepreneurial geniuses. I use 3 examples here. 2 gentlemen, Robert Dunn and John Bradstreet, saw that because of these technologies, you could actually produce a credit report. And the market conditions were such that for the first time, people needed them. It was the gold rush. People wanted to extend credit to these startup businesses that were full of scoundrels. It was a combination of international trade, community trade, where you could actually do business with people that didn't live in your town, so you may not know the person who you were doing business with. The Erie Canal was built, so you had to begin to sell products to people in, my God, the Midwest, even though you were in New York. So the market conditions were perfect, and these entrepreneurs, Mr. Dunn and Mr. Bradstreet, merged their companies to take advantage of this national event. Curiously enough, 4 presidents worked as credit reporters with Dunn and Bradstreet: Abraham Lincoln, U.S. Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, a couple others. So it was the place to be, and it was a information driven by technology, taking full advantage of market conditions. The same time frame, Paul Reuter built Reuters. The same conditions. He saw the undersea cable. The technology of the day to send stock quotes from mainland Europe to Great Britain was the technology of carrier pigeons. They would strap stock quotes to the legs of carrier pigeons. And Paul Reuter saw the opportunity to use this newfangled undersea cable, as well as these other technologies, to advance the ability to close stock quotes daily rather than weekly. And there's a theme here we'll see in a minute. By the way, Reuters' biggest first claim to fame, which put them on the map, is they were the first person to report Abraham Lincoln's death. The third example I was going to use was Associated Press. This technology is of the 1850s, 1860s, 1870s. Was the technology that drove Associated Press. The reason it was driven was the Spanish-American War, in that it got very costly for newspapers, radio stations to report the news, and they decided to consolidate all their reporters into one nonprofit that they owned, so that every newspaper and radio station didn't have to cover the same event, particularly the Spanish-American War, which had a lot of news coverage and it was very costly. But by the way, they also got a claim to fame because they were the only press agency when Abraham Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. So the punchline of this suggestion is I suggest we honor Abraham Lincoln tonight too, since he's been involved.
Yeah.
The next era of technological innovation was the 1970s, so it took almost 100 years, when the computing device was first married with a piece of data. Before 1970, there was no data-based computing done anywhere, so it's only 45 years ago. And that spawned entrepreneurs to invent a host of companies: Axion, Infogroup, Epsilon. 100 of these companies were formed within the same 2-year period because entrepreneurs saw that this computing device with data could do a good job. And we get to Joe's era. 1993 is the next era of innovation. So we went for almost 100 years to have this period of innovation, and then it only took another 25 years before we had the next one. And that was driven by 1993, the first browser was shipped by Mosaic. So it was the birth of the internet. And there are thousands of entrepreneurs who saw an opportunity to take advantage of that new technology in an era of enormous changes in commerce and society. Joe was one of the best. When you know his history, which I'll go over as part of my introduction, you'll see he's one of the first to see these opportunities when others didn't. And that's the key. And the reason I'm going through these 3 eras is once the entrepreneur sees the technology and gets the market right, and they're first, these businesses last for hundreds of years. Being first, these are natural monopolies. There's no other technology in the world that lasts forever just by being the entrepreneur who's first. And Media Math is a company that will be here for 100 years. And you should be enormously proud of that because it makes a big difference. So to get on with the introduction, so I first met Joe when he was the president. I first met Joe when he was the president of X+1, which some of you I'm sure remember. We were talking about doing business together, but unfortunately he sold the business for a lot of money just at the time we were ready to do something, so that didn't work out like I had hoped, but worked out enormously well for him, so congratulations for that. Before that, he was one of the founding entrepreneurs with Right Media, worked on the incubation team to start that concept that became kind of the basis of how advertising is served digitally. And now he's the founder, CEO of Media Math. And Media Math will be one of those companies that's here for 100 years or more. It's a leader, not only because it has great technology, but it's a leader because Joe had the vision to see what the world would be in the future when no one else did when it comes to digital advertising and ad networks in general. He's also on the board of the DMA. He's an investor in some 40-odd companies in the data-driven ad tech space. And when I was asking Joe earlier to confirm his credentials, his wife was quick to add that he's also a great husband. So there you go. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce you all to Joe Zawadzki, CEO of Innovator.
Long enough to say that I'm completely verklempt, and Charlie, that was ridiculous, and I'm so glad I brought my wife. This is a great idea. I'm going to put this somewhere. I don't want to put it on the ground.
No, give it. Here, let me give it to your wife. Let me give it to your wife.
Yes, thank you. No, certainly more. Okay, so it was in fact a 10-hour board meeting for the DMA yesterday, and both Joanne and Bruce at various moments told me to shut up, so I put notes on the page instead, and if you'll allow me. So honestly, thank you for this honor. It is really outrageous. I think being awarded the Data Innovator of the Year is sort of like the Actors Award, and it's an arcane art that we're in, and it's backed by quantitative science. And it's the people who kind of award it that make it special. It's the fact that you guys are deep practitioners, and it is a true honor. So thank you. I will say, as it's increasingly becoming the case in my life, I just get to come up here and accept awards on behalf of the people on the team that are making this stuff happen. And I'm very keen to share this with them, and I'm very keen to introduce them to you. So again, I'm really excited. Who here would characterize themselves as an accidental marketer? Hands in the air. Yep. So I am too. I'm not just an accidental marketer, but a data innovator, not by design, but by necessity. Basically, I really, really, really hate the Wanamaker quote. It's sort of been unable to rest until it's no longer the tagline for our profession, and my long-suffering wife appreciates that as well, I'm sure, that somehow I've made it a calling to banish Wanamaker's ghost. And sort of exercising Wanamaker has sort of defined certainly MediaMath's product and data strategy. It's a bunch of things. We just wouldn't hear the words, right? You'd say, marketers have to buy a bushel of chaff in order to find the grains of their best customers and best prospects. And Charlie, to your point, it was just like, well, I guess you have to, create an exchange in order to be able to sort through that, and then build a DSP in order to interoperate across all of them. But ultimately, have to do a bunch of work to create this sort of one-to-one addressable digital media supply chain. You can't make this change happen fast enough. And so we said, okay, great, we have to make our software licensable and give it to advertisers and agencies and partners in order to help enable that to happen. We got stuck on data for a long time. And the idea of data everywhere, not a thought to think. And we had some conversations earlier just about the fact that the digital community, standing on the shoulders of giants, thinking that they made it all up. It really, just amazing. And so, our first move was to aggregate third-party data. I kind of knew the audience, so I knew that you guys would let me go deep, because I'm a total dork. So thank you. So remove any friction, right? Basically say, okay, can you get any data to run on any media source, any touch point, thing one. And it was efficient, but it really wasn't effective. And it just didn't work for a lot of our clients. And clients were stuck with the cost of test and learn, anything. Sort of competitively bid marketplaces for scarce data and scarce addressable audiences against which to execute it, where like any of the obvious strategies came out and it was just like all the juice got squeezed out of that, that scarcity on both sides of the equation, and counterintuitive insights were too hard for people to invest in and kind of learn one's way to. And then we were MediaMath and we said, well, we could do some cool stuff here. We could bring algorithmic decisioning to bear, right? And we could score data both for targeting and suppression. We could make it easier. We could make it more effective. But then we realized that the data sets with the most power, right, your social graph, your search intent, and most importantly of all transactional data, that stuff was locked up and it was behind firewalls, and it wasn't disaggregated from media. Data sets weren't portable, you couldn't combine them together. So we looked around and we bought a division from Akamai 3 years ago, and I think co-op folks in this room will appreciate the prize was this like US only, e-commerce only, retail only data co-op. And then we had to buy a data modeling company called Metrics because what we bought wasn't going to scale globally to new verticals. And we had to bring in a whole bunch of people that came in with expertise from Criteo and Yahoo and Oracle and Datalogics. We had to buy an extensible cross-device identity platform from this random French company in outside of Paris. And put another way, we are not innovators. We are just stubborn AF. And for people with kids, you'll look it up in Urban Dictionary. So look, where do we think it's going? I am past, at least, so here, I'm past being prescriptive with actual next steps inside of MediaMath, and I certainly wouldn't presume in this audience to preach to people who have learned and cast away things that we are learning for the first time. So. I will share with you a couple of core principles that we're operating by. I'm going to ask you if they make sense. I'm going to ask you if you believe in them. So to start, the ruthless focus on outcomes first. The idea that if you can generate better returns with data analytics, if you can make brands and consumers happier, you have surplus that you can share. And that sharing is caring, right? This idea of finding win-wins. That you have to create these long-term partnerships to create like real great sustainable value over time and create sort of long-term outcomes that in turn you can share. It's what we learned in kindergarten, right? And so I like to call Canadian capitalism. True. Okay, so wouldn't it be great? I said this to Joanna, was like, do like a hostile takeover of Canada, reverse merge the government. I think it would be like a bold move. All right, so how does this apply to the data ecosystem? So in both my roles at the Data and Marketing Association and the DMA, IMD's New Data Center of Excellence, I'm preaching three things. Think global, not local. Put the consumer first, not second. And think long-term, not short-term. And if you put all these ideas together, it basically devolves into be joiners. Enlightened self-interest, long-term greedy, better to give than to receive. They're all ways to encode this idea that value is created through collaboration. And data is the most ineffable of commodities, right? It's the most powerful of assets, and it's a thing that defines the need more than anything else. I want to thank you all for this great honor. It is not that this bear dances well, it's that this bear dances at all. And it is so incredibly gracious of you to not just accommodate, but to award. And I want to thank you and want to help, so thanks.
So beautiful and humble speech, really beautiful. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming tonight. This is such a great showing, and we want to thank MoMAP, which is an awesome venue tonight, right? Really cool, right? So keep supporting Direct Marketing Club of New York, get your memberships in, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.